Rachel, I'll just share my screen. Okay, so good evening, everybody. If you think, hold on, let's move that over here. If you think that you understand the impact of AI, you do not understand and have yet to be instructed further. If you know that you do not understand, then you truly understand. This was a quote of Sam Altman, one of the founders of OpenAI, right early days back in February, just as sort of ChatGPT had kind of gone quite viral after its launch in November. And it's rung very true to me as I've delved further and further into AI, used more and more tools. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It just opens up more and more questions and more unknowns, and it can get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think for a lot of us, we can find this very overwhelming. It can be, quite a challenge. But one of the toughest things to do is to try and work out where do we start? Where can we start in our jobs, in our roles, in our lives, with upskilling, with this whole new kind of explosion of things. And that's very much what we're going to try and focus on tonight, about upskilling ourselves in terms of AI literacy, so we can be prepared to be, the professional knowledge workers of this AI empowered future. So a little bit about myself. I am 0.4 of me is a university lecturer. I was a full-time lecturer for 2 years, and then prior to that 15 years of lecturing part-time at MMU. But as of about sort of 2 months ago, I'm now a 0.4 lecturer, unit leader on strategic management on the global MBA. With the 0.6 bit of me, I co-founded a company, Dixon, which is AI capability partners that basically we work with lots of different organizations accelerating the rate of AI adoption. We've also made an AI app ourselves, Research Buddy, our own little app. We've got about 12,000 users. Sadly, not 12,000 paying users. There's, I think we've got about 20 paying users, but 12,000. Nevertheless, we were quite chuffed with that. What I've basically been doing ever since about March, mixed in with my lecturing, is going around working with different universities, different organizations and different businesses, doing kind of AI literacy and accelerator days and capability days. So it's probably a mixture of maybe I've done about 30 presentations so far, or 30 workshop days and seminar days, probably about a third of them. University of Birmingham, Newcastle, Manchester, Met, King's in London, and Royal Holloway. And then businesses, Brook Taverner, Amicus, DSG, Analox, Principal, IPG. And then I've also done a lot of peer-to-peer networking groups for kind of CEOs and business leaders, which I've done about perhaps 7 or 8 of those. So, I've had a lot of time talking with business owners, business leaders, doing half-day workshops, upskilling them. I've had a lot of time with educators, and I have a lot of time with businesses. Generally, when we're doing these kind of accelerator days, this bottom left image here, they're generally getting together the whole company in one go, and we're doing a huge upskilling all at once. And then some of these companies we've been working with over a period of time. So really learnt a lot about what it means to upskill the people at C-suite, D-suite and professional level, and developing that AI capability for an organization, but also the individuals involved and the different kind of roles that come to emerge from this, and hoping to share with you some of the learning from that today. We're going to have a look at the context, first of all, of AI, the big picture. We're going to have a whistle-stop tour of the tools and the models. And by whistle-stop, I really mean whistle-stop. This is the contents of a one-day session. We're going to cram into sort of 10 minutes. And then we're going to have a little move on, what's next for you? AI literacy, it's time to upskill. What do we mean by that? What could that mean for you? So So on the 30th of November 2022, OpenAI launched ChatGPT, enabling hundreds of millions of people to access the transformative power of generative AI. A technology so powerful that Facebook, Amazon, and Google have invested billions to catch up. Elon Musk wanted all development suspended initially, and Italy's initial reaction was to ban it outright. They've since U-turned, of course. Many predicted that generative AI will be more impactful than the internet. Think of all the change that's happened in our lives over the last 30 years as a result of the internet. Back in 1991, you had phone directories, letters, and newspapers. Some of those were even in colour back then. And today, my 8-year-old son, he doesn't even know what a phone directory is. He thinks paper maps are what pirates use. When I told him I used to type in code for a magazine, he replied, "What's a magazine, Dad?" But the internet today is still basically the same technology as it was back in 1991. But the reason it took so long to spread and execute its impact was because it had to rely on modem purchases, word of mouth, newspapers, mainstream media, the television to spread its capabilities and powers as it were. Fast forward to today, and it's a completely different universe. Generative AI doesn't need you to buy any additional hardware. It doesn't rely on journalistic interest or word of mouth. It's instantly accessible on the very smartphones and computers that billions of people already own. So unlike the internet, which had to wait for society to catch up, generative AI is ready here and now, disseminating at the speed of a tweet or a viral TikTok video. And that means the time each of us have to understand, adapt, and potentially steer this technology is not stretched over a leisurely 3 decades. Current predictions are giving us 3 to 6 years. So if you imagine that 30-year transformative impact of the internet squashed into sort of 3 to 6 years. So trying to imagine what business and how we're going to be doing our roles in 3 to 6 years at the moment is almost impossible. Pre-30th of November, this is how computer applications were made. It's very simplified, but it gets the point across this graph. So tech workers, IT people, they use retrieval AI, and they could access generative AI since 2017, when a paper "Attention is all you need" was published, and there was Transformers variable API. But they could basically do this stuff, look up data, they could do some coding, and they could make applications. The rest of us, the knowledge workers, so the marketeers, the lecturers, the teachers, the finance directors, the managers, the lawyers, etc., we bought these applications or rented them or licensed them or subscribed to them, and we learned how to use them, and we used them in our jobs. They never quite did what we wanted because they were generic, but they were made by tech workers for knowledge workers to use. Now, on the 30th of November 2022, when ChatGPT gave a beautiful user interface for us all to use for free, 5.8 billion people suddenly got access directly to the power of generative AI, which effectively allows us to create our own software applications simply by talking to the computer. As well as that, there was no code, if you ever heard of Zapier and Make. That connected itself to ChatGPT and Claude and some of the other AI models as well. But the big news is knowledge workers, by using these two things, could suddenly create their own applications and their own software. So the really big news was that the IT and software and application development was no longer solely the realm of techies and coders. It had broken out of the IT department and entered the mainstream of all knowledge workers. Now, Not to be outdone, the coders, they got a little treat as well, GitHub Copilot here, which is a kind of a chat GPT for code, where you write 2 pages of code and it suddenly goes, oh, I see you're trying to make a website that looks up some things. What about these extra 5 pages of code? Would that be useful? Oh, that would be. You use it. Oh, wow, suddenly 2 days work is done in 2 hours. So the 2 big implications of this were, one, the falling price of software development, and 2, the productivity boost that becomes possible from these new generative AI empowered and upskilled knowledge workers. So just having a look at the falling cost of software development, we can see over here, this blue line is the predicted cost of software. This was hardware, by the way, and you can see it's just forecast to collapse to almost nothing by 2030. That's twofold. One, from this GitHub Copilot effect, and the code is becoming multiple times more productive. And 2, from knowledge workers ourselves just being able to talk to the computer and create our own applications, and we don't even need coders to do that anymore. So that's one big impact. And the second big impact is the knowledge worker productivity boost. Now, this rather cheery slide from Goldman Sachs predicted 300 million job losses. 1/4 of the current workforce tasks could be automated by AI. That was in the US and Europe, and it goes through sort of sector by sector, office and admin, legal, architectural, physical, etc., community, predicting how much could be. Now, I wouldn't take that literally. All it means is, based on the current, if we were going to keep on producing exactly the same goods and services, we could do it with 300 million less workers. Now, every time this sort of things happened in the past, the previous industrial revolution, we create new jobs, we create new businesses, things get redeployed, and the economy grows, and we just make more stuff and make more services. So it's not, 300 million job losses are going to disappear. It just means we're going to get this huge boost. Yeah, it's talking 1/4, a huge 25% boost, more output per person. If we have a little think about that from first principles, how is this knowledge worker productivity going to boost? How is it going to come about? How is it going to happen? Well, knowledge workers used to work like this. So there's an input. We did our stuff. And then there was an output. Now let's imagine it was something like a financial audit. We've got some remit, there's a client specification or something, or whatever it is. We do our audit and our work, gather the information, and then we produce some kind of report at the end of it, maybe some compliance report. Possibly this might be a legal document we have to put together, draft a contract. So there's a client spec, some rough terms, we draft it all together, and the output's a document that needs to be signed at the other end. It could be a marketing campaign, promote more products, etc. Input, output, and the stuff the knowledge worker did. Now, with the impact of AI, what we're going to see is this middle part with the 4x knowledge worker. We're going to have something that I've termed the juice. That's the bit that the human will be doing. Now, the juice, that's the good stuff. We're talking here clarifying the purpose of what we're trying to do, qualifying the input, qualifying the output, defining the narrative, what is going on here. So in that kind of audit example, we're looking at the purpose is to verify X, Y, Z, meet compliance with certain legislation, etc., etc. We know what documents have to be produced at both ends. But now we're kind of working with the AI, and in the context, the AI is bringing all the legislation, all the legal documentation, all the clarification. It might be scanning data, generic data, and comparing it to what's going on, within the company. It might be requesting data for us to upload. It could be analysing it through various tools to look for anomalies and discrepancies and trace different pieces of actions. It could then be looking at producing, the formal written report for the auditors, for the compliance documentation. It also might produce a 1-page summary that just explains it for senior leadership. It might have something in plain English for middle managers. Maybe there's a problem in the audit with the way something's being coded. Maybe it produces a little training video that explains how to code such and such an invoice for this particular role that's been, miscoding something that was a problem in the audit. So all this blue stuff suddenly can happen automatically. And then you've kind of got the knowledge worker kind of working with the AI to get all of this stuff done and tweak it how we want. And now we can release the output out there. So it's not the most exciting example, is it, a financial audit? But you get the idea of how these things can work. And I've found this template really useful at applying to all sorts of different things. Because the great thing about AI is once you have sort of got all of the data into it, you can just flip between output, quantity, size, language, format, and type instantly. You can have a book as an output, you can have a one-page summary, you can write it in the language, academic language, you can write it in the language of a 12-year-old, you can have it in any foreign language, you can get it to output as a video, you can get it output as an avatar, you can get it to be promotional campaigns of what you're doing, you can make images, etc., etc. And we're kind of in this phase as the blue stuff all becomes built into our kind of digital world around us. Now, one thing I've slightly skipped over here is what's generative AI. And if you understand it in this 2-minute definition, you'll have done well. It usually takes a couple of hours to get your head around this. But basically, retrieval AI is something like Google. We type something into Google like AI literacy course. The retrieval algorithm heads off to the internet, looks up all the different websites that's got kind of indexed, brings back what it thinks is the most 10 relevant and returns it to you. So the key is it's all about indexing and using algorithms to retrieve the most relevant data based on a user request. Now with generative AI, there is no data. It is predictive. And what it does is it kind of has a guess based on how it was trained, what you want back as the answer. So for example, if I said to you all, for your birthday, I baked you hopefully you all just said cake there. For your birthday, I baked you a cake. I could do that with a generative AI model. Over here, I could say, for your birthday, I baked you and the generative AI model would get cake, and we wouldn't be too surprised, would we? But just imagine if I said to all of you, write me a 3,000-word strategic analysis on the impact of Brexit on the Northwest economy. What did you all come up with? Well, you all probably mumbled a bit, but if I really locked you in a room and forced you to do it, you would probably all eventually sort of write some kind of thing that was a bit of a 3,000-word essay, and you scrabble around and do some research of it. Some may be good, some maybe not. But if I then went back to the AI and I said that same question, write me the 3,000-word essay, just as quickly as it came up with cake, it would come up with a 3,000-word essay. And that's because it's not using data. It is able just to generate the response from a prompt, and that's just a simple pattern of input hits the kind of the generative models algorithm and then plops out the output. How do you create that model? Well, you take loads of data and you train the model, and it's like a huge compression thing that makes this thing that you can put information in and fire information out. So we've just skimmed on that. You probably still won't understand the difference between generative AI and retrieval AI. The key thing, at least take on board, is there is no data in a generative AI model. And that's why it can predict things based on what it's been trained on, but it can also create new things because it's the same process that it's going through. And I would really encourage you to take some time to understand the difference between those two models, because that is the only thing that has changed. The only new thing here is generative AI. A lot of the time you'll hear about retrieval AI being dressed up as something new, but it isn't. That's been here for ages. We all roughly know how that works. But the generative AI is the new thing, and understanding the difference between the two will really help boost things on. Now, what is the impact of all of this in terms of tools, etc.? Well, we've got direct models, ChatGPT, Bard, Claude 2. We've got applications, we've got agents, and we've got our own models that we can make and that we can host. If you click on all of these things, if you get a copy of the slides, you'll see I've made you hyperlinks to, there's Llama 2, a model you can download and try and host it yourself. We've got GPT for All, something you can download and host yourself. We've got Auto GPT, where you can make agents. We have Futurepedia.io with a whole pile of stuff in there. But I'm going to just show you, at Dixon Humphreys, we've made AI Buddy, which is a platform that brings all of this stuff together. And we basically divide everything up into, we have a little bit of news here. We've got some tools, but we group everything into a model library. So we have all of the main models here. So we've got ChatGPT, which I'm sure you all know how to use and type in. So I'm not going to demo that particularly, but we have Claude, something called Claude as well. Now, Claude is another AI model, and this one is very much worthwhile finding out about if you've not seen it. I'm just going to start a new chat. The great thing about Claude is where ChatGPT can only handle about 4,000 words, Claude can handle 80,000 words. So if I go up to my test documents, I can go into something like this, pick something like this document, and I can just fire it into Claude, and it will probably on its own have a guess that I want to summarize it, and here we go. This, by the way, is all the data it's just read. It's picked it up from that PDF, and I could now start asking questions about that document. What's it talking about there? Tell me more about enactment. But you can imagine doing this with a contract, with a book, etc., etc. And I can ask questions and I can interrogate it, but I could also, this is a strategy document, strategic management in the enacted world, and I could, I say, suggest some further academic research I could do myself, inspired by this document's work. And it will, I'm not able just to read it and analyze it, I'm able to then use the AI to make suggestions and create things moving forward. Taking its time here. There we go. Conduct an in-depth case study, strategic sense making, prepare and so on. Now, I could go on and get it to write all sorts of things, but I'll leave you guys to have a little explore of that on your own. We've also got things like Dream Studio, which can make images. So here's a few I made earlier. Photograph captured with a bar, and it can, from this text prompt here, you can get these various images to be drawn up. We've got models like Ideogram. This is a really good one for where you want text in the images. That works really well. Midjourney is another model. And one of the key aspects of AI literacy here is really getting your head around the fact there are loads of these models. And if we just click that link at the top there, I can show you, this is a league table of all the different models there. This is a website called Hugging Face, and people, they basically compete against each other to see which ones are more effective, and people are voting to see. You can see GPT-4 is coming across as one of the most effective ones, Claude 2 right up there with it, hence why I recommended it. And we've got some other models that I've not really played with yet, Wizard and Vicuna and Llamas, the Meta one, the Facebook one. That's one that you can kind of host yourself if you want, if you've got proprietary data and code that you want to keep off it and run separately, and so on and so forth. Code Llama, a specific one for doing coding, loads of this. So this is a great place for nosing around and finding stuff out. So Those are AI models. Now, as well as models, we've also got AI prompts. One of the things we've found is developing our own list of prompts that we kind of want to look at again and again. So here's one I made. I made a management consultant that works for my business. So, you know, for the rest of this conversation, you're an expert management consultant and business mentor. You've got 20 years experience working at the highest level in McKinsey, absorbed all of the business acumen of both Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, blah, 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 blah. And I've got it trained up to advise my business as I'm the owner of that. And I can run this prompt that I've saved. And you can basically, once you've written these prompts, you can save them. You can save them in ChatGPT on the side, but it's just really bookcasing something that works. And then now I've got hold of Philippa, an expert management consultant here to help Dixon Humphreys fulfill its strategic objectives. So, you know, I've given the AI a role. I'll say, how can I grow my business? And it can start to come up with some ideas. Deepening customer relationships. Tell me more about number 1. Okay. And we could say develop a specialized training program for me. Interestingly, you notice that I am misspelling things, but it will still stop generating there. It still can reply because the generative AI, although we might be challenging it a bit there with my spelling of program. Oh, here we go. No, it's got it. Program title, and it's coming up with a specialist training program. I could say, write a LinkedIn post to promote this. And off we go. So we're whistle stopping tour. This is where saving prompts are useful. Why they're useful, because I can keep coming back to this consultant again and again. And there's a whole skill set there in terms of prompt engineering. In terms of the tools, these are all the kind of applications that are out there. Particularly interesting ones that I'd like to draw your attention to are Get Cody, which is a fantastic tool for creating your own. Oh, I should have signed in earlier, shouldn't I? Creating your own bot. But here, what you can do, it's as simple as you can create yourself a knowledge folder. There's a few I've made earlier. This was one I made for a room with hang on a minute. Let's do the Dixon Humphreys one. Basically, you can drag up documents into this, and I could upload here, and it's as simple as I drag in documents there. I can import a website by typing the URL. I can type in raw data, and this all goes in to train the model. I can then, once I've made my knowledge group, I can go to bots. I can simply create a bot. Let's pick a factual one. Let's call it Fred. Pick the AI model I want. We'll call it Fred. Go with, pick a few of these. Pick that knowledge base I made earlier. Create. And Fred the factual bot turns up. And if I go share, turn that off, copy that link. And I have now got a deployed chatbot that's trained on all of that data that was about my company. So tell me about Dixon Humphreys. So this is really useful because when ChatGPT doesn't know about things, you can train it on any documents. This could be a bundle of documents for a tender, a code, contracts, anything, and we're off. It knows all about it. How can they help me with AI in my business? And we're now having a chat with this. But the reason I'm kind of, this isn't, yeah, I could have spent a bit more time training that better. But the point is, if I go back to that area, the speed that you can train these bots on your data is incredibly fast. I'm going to show you another quick one, Research Buddy. This is one that we made ourselves. I should have logged in to these earlier. Log in. Yeah, there we go. I'll just do a really quick one. We could do a literature review like Brexit in Manchester. And if I set that going, it will head off and do a literature review for us. I'm just going to nip to one I made earlier for speed. These are the ones I made earlier. So here's one called that I did for UK legislation on garden buildings to how I met. Let's go for the permitted development areas in areas of outstanding natural beauty. So from just that prompt, it found me a scope of the literature, divided it up in different sections, pulled all the academic research for it, divided it all up, and then gave me a summary over of it all. And I can click download as a Word file, and I'm ready to go off and do some research beyond that. Now, one of the things that I wanted to show you here super quickly is that is a nice field where it's pulling up valid research because it's well published. But if you type in something like sheep farming in central London amongst the blind community, and this is one of the dangers of AI, is it will also produce a compelling literature review with interesting academic research, such as overcoming barriers, strategies for blind individuals in sheep farming, from the Journal of Agriculture and Accessibility, apparently, which is completely fictitious, and none of this exists. And that's sort of one of the dangers of generative AI. When its training data set has a lot of information in, it will produce a fantastic literature review. Where it doesn't, it will kind of make stuff up. These apps, there are thousands of them, and this Futurepedia link that you've got on the slide will show all of them, and you can click on there and you can have a delve through, and you'll find all sorts of differing things. This headshot one's really good. We used a different one where you can get your headshot and move it around and do different things. All sorts of different stuff there. So we covered bots, we covered and the bots that we deployed, we had a quick look at Get Coded. That's how we made them. This was one I made. This is a voice flow bot, a slightly more sophisticated one. And this is like connecting a few AI agents up. These are all things that if you put your mind to it and delve around in this lot, probably within a day, you can start to make some of these things. This one I made for my MBA course, and it kind of controls with questions that you can ask, but you can also just type in anything. This one's about strategy, so it'll be able to answer questions like that, as well as giving me specific information that it's been trained on for the course and give guidance to. There you go, it's answering that general question as well, and it's connecting to the coursework and so on. So you could imagine this being, sales bot, customer service bot, all sorts of different things that could be built, and you could be deploying one with a collection of documents, HR resources. So we have super whistle stop through all of that, and just show you one last bit in here. One thing we do is we work a lot with all of the people in the different companies. They all come to these dev club meetings, and we do little spotlights on all the different bits and bats that are going to kind of work through these kind of different sections. So, right, that was an ultra whistle stop tour. What time are we on? We're on 39. Hurry up, Rob. So, what does AI literacy mean, having gone through that? Generative AI versus retrieval AI. Really important to take the time to understand that and appreciate we've whistled through it. Then it's understanding there are lots of AI models, of which ChatGPT is one, and it is a large language model. Prompt engineering. This is the art of crafting the input prompts to an AI model in a way that elicits more accurate, useful outputs. As I showed you just quickly some of the things you can do. You can get it to behave as advisors, you can do things. There are then AI bots. These are automated programs designed to perform specific tasks, often mimicking human interactions. So you can kind of create them And it's really about linking a model with some kind of predefined prompts, and then you can deploy them and they'll run independently, and you can sort of put them on your website, you can put them in links on emails and so on. Then it's about understanding AI in applications. So we've got some broad use ones that we haven't looked at tonight, where we've got AI popping up in LinkedIn, Miro, Google Apps for Business, Office, Copilot, these sorts of things. But what we did just show you is a couple of narrow use case ones, like Get Cody for making bots, Research Buddy for doing literature reviews, Dealify is one for doing tender document writer, Jasper's one for marketing, and I showed you that website, futurepedia.ai, with thousands. We also didn't have time to have a quick look at plugins, which is the that's applications getting put into the AI user interface. And then the final bit really of AI literacy is AI ethics. So these are the core skills that you kind of need for the modern world. Now you've got the headings. If you noodle around, you can find this stuff on your own and delve in with it. I would certainly start with really trying to understand this, because that then fits together as it moves forward. A small plug for the Dixon Humphreys AI Literacy for Professionals course that we've made at this point. Apologies for the shameless plug, but we have developed a 6-week online course that runs on Fridays that basically goes through models in week 1 and generative AI versus retrieval AI, prompt engineering week 2, bots in week 3, AI ethics professional use week 4. And then every week there's a dev club that involves mixing with all the people from educational institutions and academic practices, where you can come along and try and make these bots do these things. And it's like a kind of a workshop that helps people deliver the stuff, be it in their job, in their role, or whatever. So it's a real AI literacy kind of booster course. If anyone is interested in signing up, there is a link here that we'll paste in the chat later. And I think it's just time to wrap up with a final summary, so I can let you guys ask some questions. So November 22, generative AI becomes accessible to all knowledge workers, basically 5.8 billion people who've got access to the internet, which is 78% of the world's population. This kicks off the AI revolution. It's hyper turbulent, it's unpredictable, there's a compounded exponential rate of growth. 2 key themes: it's transitioning to the world to a world of 10x coding productivity, and it's transitioning the world to a 4x knowledge worker productivity boost. What does this mean for you? It means if you want to be part of this new world, you need to upskill, and the quicker you upskill, the better. As you start to explore this, think around the themes, and I'm talking here not about tech people, I'm talking about everybody else: solicitors, lawyers, marketers, managers, salespeople, customer service operatives, training, lecturers, whatever, teachers. Understanding generative AI, retrieval AI, your models, get the hang of a bit of prompt engineering, explore some of those applications, go on futurepedia.ai, have a look at them all, have a go at making a bot. You'll be far easier than you did. And then have a little think about ethics and copyright, especially if you're going to do it. Themes from this is it's quite difficult to learn what generative AI is, but once you've got it, everything becomes a lot easier. Keep up to date with this, because this is constantly changing all the time. Try not to learn about this by reading and going to things. Try and learn by doing stuff. Just go and find some of those models and try and do some things. Try and do stuff in ChatGPT. Doing and using and playing is the way to learn this new technology. Much better than, well, I'm going to criticize my own session, but much better than coming to too many sessions or reading too many books. Go and explore, and just have lots of little goes. Try lots of little things, and you'll be amazed how fast and how easy you can pick some of this stuff up. So that's a bit about it from me. If you want to connect with me, you can scan that QR code, or these links are in the chat. You can click that link to connect with you on LinkedIn. If you'd like to discuss how Dixon Humphreys could work with your organization, then drop me a message, have a chat. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I'm posting things all the time. I do quite a few free things that where you can upskill and do that. Feel free to come along that. If you're interested in AI literacy for course professionals, we've got a link there to sign up. If you're interested in that AI Buddy Dev Club thing, there's a place to sign up there. And if you're interested in Research Buddy, there's a link to sign up there. Be very careful with Research Buddy's free for I think it's 5 tries. Just be very careful that it doesn't hallucinate any of those references for you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. That was brilliant and very informative and insightful. There have been some questions in the chat, so I'm just going to pick a couple here to wrap us up until 8 o'clock, if that's okay. So
sure, yeah.
I'll just go to the chat now. So David Sinclair's asked, given that generative AI is trained on existing data, how can it ever truly create something innovative? Would it ever be able to generate, for example, an innovative novel, say, as per Ali Smith, he's given an example, without having seen instances of that type of writing beforehand?
So absolutely, it can create things innovative and original. And the way it does that, the reason it can do that is because the way an AI model works is basically modeled on the human brain and neural networks. And the way we create innovative new things, and they've done this by putting people in MRI scanners, is when we are creating anything new or thinking of the future, something like 95% of our brain activity is memory. What we are doing is drawing on all of our past experiences and learning and applying that to our network to create new things and extrapolate that into the future when we bring purpose to it. And so the AI is completely copying the same process of original writing, you know, as the brain is. So just how we wouldn't really be able to create original things, we wouldn't be able to create original poetry or works or stories if we hadn't read lots of books previously. We didn't know what language was, we hadn't interacted with people, we hadn't lived a life, understood how the world worked, communicated, talked, learned language and expression. Now, that effectively is our training data set that's given us our own little sort of version of an AI model in our head that allows us to create original and new things. And when they made these models, this generative AI model, they've kind of reverse engineering that process, and that's kind of where we get to with it. So it can create absolutely brilliant things. The bit that I think is sometimes brought up is, you know, it's like, well, is it more creative than humans, or will it take creative jobs? What I find is the collaboration of creating things with the AI is amazing. When you start trying to create original things yourself and you put it into the AI and ask it for ideas and get things back off it, and you start bouncing around with it and working it, you can just produce such better. I can personally produce way better quality stuff than I did on my own, and way faster and way much more volume. And you can get through block and things, and working with the AI, it's like a multiplier. The AI in the hands of an amateur, though, will produce pretty average rubbish. And it's basically about the purpose that you bring to it. If you give it a duff prompt, you'll get a duff piece of work. But if you give it a really depth and in-depth crafted purpose, and you have a sort of discussion with it, you can get it to create some amazing things in tandem. And I think that is really part of AI literacy. And I'd really encourage you to explore trying to do that yourself, because you'll be surprised by what's possible.
Great, thank you, Rob. Hope that helps you, David, with your question. Katie has asked, would you recommend that companies have an AI user policy sooner rather than later? And if so, is there a template they should be using?
So in terms of what companies should do, I would suggest, I've got this thing that I've been working on called the Gephi model. And let me just quickly share my screen again. I'll give you the rough gist of it. This was what I quickly skipped over here. In terms of organizational strategy, this is sort of Boston Consultant Group, and I've adapted it. 3 strands to it: potential, people, and policy. Now, for policy, that is what we're talking about here, the AI policy. Key thing there is what the most important thing of an AI policy really is. A general one should say, use it, experiment it, play with it, learn with it. But this is our IP. Do not put this IP into the AI without checking with someone or reviewing it. So define what your IP is and make sure it's your intellectual property, and make sure that that's clear. And I think the other aspect of that as well is, if you're going to commercially use the output of an AI, be it a picture, an image, a model, or video, or some text, again, then or do some major decisions on it, then you need a policy for how is that reviewed, how is that discussed. By experimenting, playing, piloting, trying things, and testing out, let's actively encourage that. Now, what the other aspect is the innovation side. That's the potential things that can be done, and the AI literacy is the bit in the middle. Now, what tends to happen is, I found educational institutions tend to leap onto the policy and the ethics of it first, and businesses tend to leap onto the innovation, the potential, and the doing of the things. And there's a bit of a mixture, but really the place to start is the AI literacy. And what I've found when I've worked with organizations is say, look, let's have a big AI day. Let's all get in a room, do a load of things, muck around with all these different models and stuff, C-suite, D-suite, and employees together. At the end of that big day of upskilling, then we do a kind of a post-it note thing where everyone puts them, it's like a virtual thing on Padlet or Miro, and everyone says how they could use it in their role. And then from that, leave it a few weeks, and then come back and start to put your policy together, and then come back and start to put your innovation roadmap together for what can be done with the company, because people then know what they're talking about. Whereas usually at the start, 95% of people in the organization do not know what they're talking about, and you have a very uninformed discussion. Once that day's happened and the AI literacy is up, you find, you get amazing innovation roadmaps, the transformations there. And when the policy is being discussed, it's discussed from a position of knowledge and experience, from having a day of playing and experimenting. So that's why I always say, start with the literacy, make the policy as light as touch as possible. And I would just say, encourage it, use it, play it, but tell people what not to put in it. But definitely don't ban it, because that's going to hold your organization back. And then once you do something to promote this, do an event, and then after that point, have this discussion of what to do. I've found when organizations try to bring the policy in first or the innovation in first, that they go nowhere with it, really. The innovation tends to go with the IT department, and then they don't redevelop the use cases, and then all of the knowledge workers don't upskill, and certainly the senior leadership don't start using it themselves to make better strategy decisions. And from a policy point of view, if you get too quickly on the policy, there's a bit of an instinct to ban it all and stop it all. When I've worked through this, I do this in more detail with CEOs and business owners. Usually 30–40% of them will immediately do something major on the AI literacy side of things, either with us, and the rest will immediately just go off and organize something themselves if they've got somewhere in there to do that, with some kind of event to launch it. And it's the message that you really give out to the team is, look, AI's here, it's really big, it's ready to go, there's loads of stuff that can be done. We're not sure where this company's going to go with it yet, but what we do know is we need to know more about it. So today, or this half-day session, we're all going to pile in, we're going to play with it, learn it, get to the end of it, and then we're going to have discussion in a week or two, or we'll put it on the agenda at the next management meeting to talk about where we go with this new skill set, but from a position of understanding. Okay, hope that answers that question.
Thanks, Rob. Just keeping an eye on the time now, probably this will be our last question. So Tom says he remembers as an undergrad being taught about different search engines at the time for specific tasks, Northern Lights and Netscape Navigator as examples. And then Google came along and this was the standard best. Do you think this is likely to be the case for AI?
AI isn't going to be one standard. There's going to be thousands of models. That's where it's going to go. They won't all coalesce around one mega model. There will be thousands of models. that if you have one mega model that's super smart, the compute cost will be too expensive, and then there'll be these more focused, specialized ones that do different things, and there'll probably be AIs in your toaster and in your phone and all over the place, and then different AIs will have different purposes, and we'll end up with all sorts of different ones, and we'll probably all have our own, and we'll probably all be training our own ones. This idea of a one mega model that we all kind of use, a bit like Google is for the internet, I think that's highly unlikely as an end game based on where it's going. Again, if you're thinking about waiting to find out what that model is, I would urge you do not wait, because just get going experimenting with the models there, because really understanding what generative AI is will only come by using it, and by the time things start to coalesce and settle down, the world will be a completely different place. Do you want me to just have a read through, see if I can answer a few of these others quickly? Let me just have a quick scroll.
Yeah,
see what
absolutely.
we can do. Where were we down to with this? Would you recommend companies have an AI user policy? Yeah, sooner rather than later. I remember that in undergrad. Yeah. Whilst AI is very good, there are still concerns around bias hallucinations. The responses you get from ChatGPT are often adequate, not exceptional. Do you think we'll get around the challenges of bias? And as humans, do we accept adequate is okay in fast-paced, safe time? So answer to that question would be, it is probably your prompting engineering skills, Razi. If your prompting engineering skills are better, you will find that the AI is very useful. Just like having an assistant who will go away and do lots of work for you, you don't trust them implicitly and go with what their output is, but it's very useful to have assistants doing all sorts of research with access to the internet that can write thousands of words, can code, are multilingual, can come up with ideas, write original poetry, write original books, write plays, scripts, dramas, novels, marketing campaigns, you name it. So it's not really a question of will it be this or will it be that. We need to learn how to use it, and then some models will get better, some models will not get better. So I would just encourage you, use it more, and it's ready to go now. Once you have, and what's probably holding you back is just upping your own skill set with use of it. A bit like the skill set of managing people, really. You have to learn how to trust people, know when you can rely on them, know when to double check if you're going to put your name to their work. Relating to previous question on bias in AI, do you believe the increasing adoption of AI in business will lead to misuse by influencing people in decision making, a similar way to subliminal messaging already does? So I think actually it's probably going to have the opposite effect, because because it's quite accessible, democratized, and out there. Humans are far more susceptible to biases, prejudice, influence, manipulation, nepotism than a machine. So once you have kind of AI involved in making decisions and running things, the algorithm's the algorithm of how it's been set up, the training's there, everybody can test it, and it's going to be much more consistent, I would have thought, than a human being. So I think, although there is some, there are some worries about that, I think actually when you compare the machine to the human, I think there's actually opportunities for improvement there. Now, this is why you never want one AI, because if one company's made an AI that's trying to persuade you to sell things and use its products, you're going to want to have your own AI that you trust to decide what other people's AIs are trying to do. So, each and different companies will want different AIs, because one might be trying to sell things to the other one, the other one's trying to sell things to the other. So we're going to end up with, I think, with lots of models with lots of different purpose. This is called the what's it called? I forgot the term for a moment. I think it's called the alignment problem. It's aligning the purpose and the reason of the AI with the human and the operative, and then different humans aren't aligned. Therefore, you need different AIs. With all the progress that AI has seen, there are so many who now draw parallels between AI explosion and the dot-com bubble. Do you think that these comments are justified? And if so, what do you think AI needs? If so, what do you think AI needs to do to survive? I think it is not going to be a bubble. This is going to be far more transformative than the internet. It is going to accelerate far faster than the internet, and it is absolutely definitely not a bubble. The amount of real world impact and difference and productivity that I'm seeing at ground level when people adopt this is phenomenal. I've never done sessions and training courses where when I go back a few weeks later, 40% of the people who were in the room have changed their daily work practice and start telling me about how their productivity is boosted up by 30-40%. Like a guy who was doing health and safety risk assessments, he used to do 1 a day, suddenly does 5. There was a guy who was doing coding, switched to GitHub Copilot. They were saving like 80% of the time. Somebody who was doing contracts to draft them up, they got a template, made a repeat prompt. They cut the time by 90% to draft these contracts, and they were better than the lawyers they're out servicing. Translation companies, they got rid of all the translation companies, they brought them in-house. Marketing, automation, and these were just things that could be done straight away before they even start to automate them and do some training on their own data and things. So it's definitely there, and the value is huge. And you know, maybe some of the shares will bubble up and down, but the tech is going to stick, and it's going to adapt very quickly. I'd say Hollywood screenwriter strike, where AI is being used to write scripts, is a good example of how you can't stop progress in the area. AI push humans, similar to CGI and Weave. Yep, that is a good example, and it's going to be very interesting what happens in terms of copyright and creativity. And all the countries of the world are busy running around working out what the new law and legislation is in terms of this, and we'll find out. That story is definitely yet to unfold. Have you seen any uses for engineering? Is there any bots that can handle information in different forms, such as tables, graphs, and images? Yes, ChatGPT with the plugin on data analysis can handle spreadsheets. It can do graphs. If you've got the ChatGPT 4 plugin, it can do vision. You can upload it. I just saw, I think Bard was bringing out a vision plugin as well. So there's a whole stack of stuff on that. In terms of engineering, you will be amazed what's in its training data set. I've worked with an engineering company that used it to do noise filtration, to take out noise from sensitive reading models. I've seen it people use it to hard to convert code into machine code for coding chips and programming ECUs directly. I've seen people use it for what was the other one that they were doing in SARS? That was it. There was a SARS protocol of coding language that they needed for certain defense contractor or something or other. Anyway, it knew all about that, and it could develop the testing regimes for it and the software and all the priorities and the different things. Whatever you're doing in your role, it's probably read the instruction manuals for goodness knows how many machines. Just ask it stuff, and you'll be amazed if it knows about it already. If it isn't, you can upload it all and train it on it using that Get Cody or Claude. In your opinion, what role should AI take education sector? That's a big one. I think it's going to be a bit like a study skills type thing. We've got things like, you know, it's going to help teachers explore the classroom. It's got the ability to help writing. It's going to be an absolutely essential part of education, because the labour market is going to require people who are working with AI and are AI literate and moving with these things all the time. If you go to my LinkedIn, you'll find I've just done a 1-hour seminar on the impact of AI in higher education, something for faculty leadership. If you watch that, there's a whole load of my take of where AI needs to go there. Yes, it's going to have a massive impact in it, because, you know, we can't pretend it's not there. Probably the closest analogy there, I would say, is that what the calculator has done to maths, AI is going to do to English. People will initially resist it, sorry, to writing, and very quickly everyone will be writing with AI, you know, together with AI, not just on their own. Just like a calculator is a bit useless in the hands of someone who can't do maths. Yeah, you've got to know what to put in it and what to do with it and what to do with the output. Well, AI is just going to really help accelerate the writing of work and bringing things up and improve the quality and engagement. Thank you very much. Blah, 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 blah. We've got the links at the bottom, and I think I've gone through all the questions. Whistled through them.
Thank you, Rob. That's fantastic. I think you did go through those questions at a very fast fast speed there. So thank you so much for your talk and for answering all those questions. And thank you to all our guests this evening for giving your time to attend. We hope you've learned a lot about AI and we've given you some ways for you to continue your discussion. So yeah, so I can see a few people clapping their hands there in the digital way. So thank you, everybody. Steph has just put some information in the chat. And we will be emailing everyone this week with some of the ways to connect with Rob on LinkedIn and some of the information that you've heard tonight. So thank you again, everybody. And from all of us here at Manchester Met, have a great evening. And we hope to see you at the next event. And I think Steph is now going to finish this event for us. So goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.